I never expected a quiet Sunday afternoon to turn into the most emotionally confusing day of my life. The kind of day that grabs you by the heart and won't let go. It all started with a phone call, my nephew, Ryan, sounding broken and exhausted, asking if he could come over. He'd just gone through a bad breakup, or so I thought. His voice cracked on the other end of the line, and of course, I said yes without hesitation. Ryan has always been close to me. After his parents divorced, I became one of the few people he truly trusted. I always saw him as the sensitive, soft-spoken kid who grew up too fast. But that day, something in his voice felt different. When he arrived, his eyes were red-rimmed, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. I made him tea, wrapped him in a blanket, and sat next to him on the couch, ready to listen. He stayed silent at first. Just stared at the steam rising from his cup. I didn't push. I knew he'd speak when he was ready. I thought I was just being a supportive aunt, helping someone I loved through heartache. I thought this was about a girl who had broken his heart. But the longer he sat there, the more uneasy I felt. There was this tension in the air, something I couldn't name yet, but it made my skin prickle. Finally, he spoke. At first, it was vague. He said he'd ended things because it wasn't real, that the relationship had been a distraction. I asked him what he meant. That's when his hands started to shake. He looked up at me, his eyes wet and searching. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My stomach dropped. There was something in the way he said it, like it wasn't just a confession but a weight he'd been carrying for a long time. He started telling me how he's been feeling lost for years. How no one really sees him for who he is. He talked about the loneliness, the pressure to be someone he's not, and how he's always found comfort in our talks. I listened closely, feeling more and more confused. The pieces weren't fitting together. Then came the silence again, but this time it felt heavier, like the room had shrunk. I asked him gently, Ryan, what is it you're trying to say? He looked away for a moment, then back at me with a kind of vulnerability I hadn't seen in him before. It wasn't her I was hurting over, he said. It's never really been about her. It's you. I think it's always been you. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. My heart raced, and all I could do was stare. My mind went blank, then filled with 1,000 thoughts at once. I didn't understand. I didn't want to believe it. This was Ryan, my nephew. I was trying to comfort him through a breakup, not become the center of his heartbreak. He looked so scared after saying it, like he expected me to get up and walk away. But I couldn't move. I didn't know what to feel. I was torn between shock, confusion, and this overwhelming urge to make sense of everything. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Just silence. Heavy, pressing silence. And that's where it all started to unravel, where the truth began to stretch and twist everything I thought I knew. Because that moment changed everything. And what happened after, well, I'm still trying to understand it myself. I sat there, frozen, my thoughts crashing into each other. Ryan had just said something that didn't make sense, something that shouldn't have been said. I kept replaying it in my head, it's you. I think it's always been you. It didn't register right away. I wanted to believe I misunderstood him. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe he was emotional, confused, lashing out in grief over his breakup. But deep down, I knew he wasn't confused. His eyes were clear, steady, full of something deeper, something he'd been holding in for a long time. I looked at him closely. He wasn't the teenager who used to come to me for advice about school or family drama. He was in his 20s now, grown, but still the same Ryan I'd helped raise in small ways. I remembered when he was 16 and called me crying after his dad forgot his birthday. I remembered helping him write his college application essays, staying up late together eating instant noodles. I'd been there through all of it. I saw myself as a safe place for him, not someone who could ever be the cause of his pain, or this kind of confusion. I finally found the strength to ask him what he meant. My voice cracked. "Ryan, what are you saying?" He looked down at his hands, fidgeting with the sleeves of his sweatshirt like he was trying to hide inside them. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said, "because I knew it would sound wrong. I've tried to forget it. I've tried dating other people. But it never goes away." My chest felt tight. I kept searching for the right words, but nothing I said would make this moment easier. I didn't want to hurt him, but I also didn't want to encourage something I couldn't understand. The whole thing felt like stepping into a room where the floor had disappeared. Nothing felt steady anymore. I told him I needed time. That this was a lot. He nodded, said he understood, and asked if he could just stay the night, on the couch, like he used to when he was younger. I agreed, because I didn't have the heart to send him away in the state he was in. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about our past, about whether I'd missed signs, whether I'd done something unintentionally that blurred the lines for him. I started questioning myself, my words, my actions, every hug, every conversation. Had I been too comforting? Too close? Or was he just looking for something steady in a life that's always felt unpredictable to him? Either way, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us, something that couldn't be undone. The next morning was quiet. He made coffee like it was just another day, like the night before hadn't cracked open something we couldn't put back. I watched him from across the kitchen, trying to find traces of the kid I used to know, and they were still there. But there was something else too. A kind of sadness that hadn't been there before. Like now that the truth was out, he didn't know what to do with it either. I kept thinking about what to do next, whether to talk to someone about it, whether to confront him again, or just let it go and hope it would fade. But how do you unhear something like that? How do you go back to normal when the definition of normal has been completely rewritten overnight? And just when I thought the moment had passed, that maybe we could pretend it didn't happen, something else happened that made it clear, this wasn't going away. It was only the beginning. That morning, I tried to go through the motions, making breakfast, pretending things were fine, but everything felt off. Ryan sat across from me at the table, eating quietly, barely looking up. The silence between us wasn't like before. It was loaded now. Every word I didn't say felt louder than the ones I could have. I kept wondering if he regretted saying anything at all, or if he felt relieved it was finally out in the open. But he didn't bring it up again, and I didn't know how to, so we just sat there in this strange, heavy stillness. Later that day, I met up with my friend Laura. I didn't tell her everything, I couldn't. But I hinted that Ryan was going through something emotional and that I was feeling caught in the middle of it. She raised an eyebrow. "Caught how?" she asked. I just shook my head and said it was complicated. She offered to talk to him or even take him out for a drink to get his mind off things. I smiled and thanked her, but deep down, I knew this wasn't something anyone else could untangle. Over the next few days, Ryan stayed around more than usual. He helped out around the house, cooked dinner once, even folded laundry without being asked. It almost felt normal again, except it wasn't. Every time he brushed past me in the kitchen or looked at me for a second too long, I felt this tightness in my chest. I didn't know if I was imagining it or if something had really shifted in him, and in me. I started pulling away in small ways. I'd leave the room when he walked in. I'd say I was tired even when I wasn't, just to avoid late-night conversations. I think he noticed, but he never said anything. Then something strange happened. I found a sketchbook in the guest room he'd been using. I wasn't snooping, I was changing the sheets, but it was just sitting there on the nightstand, half open. I couldn't help myself. Inside were drawings of faces, mine, mostly. From memory, from different angles. Some were just quick sketches, others more detailed. It was like he'd been studying me, trying to hold on to something that felt real to him. My stomach dropped. I closed the book gently and walked out, not knowing what to do with the knot that formed in my throat. The thing is, I wasn't angry. I was scared of what this meant, of what I might have missed, of how deep this went. Because if this was just a crush, it would pass. But if it was something deeper, something he truly believed in, then nothing was ever going to be simple again. The days that followed felt like walking on a tightrope stretched thin and trembling beneath my feet. Ryan and I shared the same space, but it felt like we were worlds apart. I caught myself studying his expressions, searching for any clue about what he was thinking or feeling. His usual openness was replaced by guarded silence, like he was holding back, waiting for something, waiting for me to make the first move. But what move could I make when I didn't even understand what was happening? One evening, as the sun dipped low and the house grew quiet, Ryan asked if we could talk. My heart pounded, and I felt the weight of every unspoken word hanging between us. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only background noise. He looked at me with those same searching eyes, vulnerable but steady. "I know this isn't easy for either of us," he began, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect you to understand. I just needed to be honest, with you, and with myself." His words felt like a knife twisting gently in a wound I didn't know I had. I wanted to respond, to say something comforting, but all I could do was nod. Then he said something that stopped me cold. "I don't want to lose you. But I don't know how to fix this, or if it even can be fixed." The rawness in his voice broke something inside me. I realized then that we were both trapped, two people tangled in emotions neither of us knew how to untangle. The house felt smaller, the air thicker, and the silence between us louder than ever. That night, I lay awake, torn between fear and hope, wondering what the next day would bring. Because I knew things were about to change forever, and there was no turning back now. The next morning felt heavier than usual, like the weight of the night hadn't lifted at all. Ryan was quiet again, but there was something different in the way he moved, more determined, maybe even desperate. As I poured coffee in the kitchen, he finally broke the silence. "There's something I haven't told you," he said, voice low but steady. I looked up, heart racing, unsure if I was ready for whatever was coming next. He hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Before all this, the breakup, the feelings, I was seeing someone else. Someone I didn't tell you about." My mind spun. Who? Why hadn't he told me? And how did that fit into everything else? He looked down, ashamed. I didn't want to admit it, even to myself, but it wasn't just a fling. It meant something. I blinked, trying to process the new piece of the puzzle. Ryan continued, "I thought if I could move on from them, maybe I could figure out what I really wanted. But I kept coming back to you." It felt like the ground shifted beneath me again. The emotions I was already struggling to navigate suddenly became more tangled and confusing. It wasn't just about us anymore, there was someone else in the picture, someone who'd been part of Ryan's world all along. And that someone had a claim on his heart too. The stakes just got higher. What did this mean for our relationship? Could I even call it that anymore? And what was Ryan really hoping for? Closure, a fresh start, or something that neither of us fully understood? As the questions swirled, I realized this story wasn't just about a breakup or a confession. It was about identity, love, and the messy, complicated ways those things collide. And right now, I was caught in the middle, unsure if I could find my way out, or if I even wanted to. That evening, everything came to a head. Ryan sat me down, his hands trembling just like that first night. "I've been scared," he admitted. "Scared of losing you, scared of what this all means. But I can't keep hiding anymore." His honesty broke through my confusion like a sharp beam of light. I realized that he wasn't asking for something impossible, he was just asking to be seen for who he truly was. We talked for hours, peeling back layers neither of us had dared to face before. Ryan explained how his feelings weren't about crossing boundaries or breaking rules, they were about loneliness, connection, and a desperate search for understanding. I told him how much I loved him as family, and how that love didn't have to be defined by expectations or labels. We agreed we needed space to heal, but also that we couldn't just ignore the truth anymore. Just when I thought we were finding some fragile peace, Ryan looked up with a shaky smile and said, "There's one more thing." My heart tightened again, but I nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This is a letter I wrote to you months ago," he said. "Before I even knew what I was feeling." With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside were words of gratitude, apologies, and a plea for forgiveness, not for his feelings, but for hiding them. And then, at the very end, a sentence I never expected: "Whatever happens, I hope one day we can be more than just family." The room spun. The lines we'd thought were clear blurred again, but this time with a new weight, one neither of us was ready to carry, yet neither could ignore. And just like that, the story wasn't over. It was only just beginning. After reading that letter, I felt a mix of emotions: confusion, sadness, but also a deep compassion for Ryan's courage. It wasn't an easy truth to face, but it was real. We sat quietly for a long time, both understanding that love doesn't always follow the rules we expect. What mattered most was honesty and respect. We promised each other that no matter how complicated things got, we would prioritize our bond, the trust and care that had always been there. In the weeks that followed, Ryan and I gave each other space to process everything. We reached out to a counselor, someone who helped us navigate the difficult feelings without judgment. It wasn't about fixing things overnight, but about learning to accept the complexity of human emotions and relationships. Ryan continued his journey of self-discovery, and I supported him as family, no matter what shape that took. Looking back, I realize how important it is to listen deeply to those we love, even when the truth challenges us. Sometimes, helping someone isn't about giving answers or solutions, it's about holding space for their feelings, no matter how unexpected or confusing they might be. This experience reminded me that love is messy, unpredictable, but always worth the effort. Our story didn't end with neat answers or clear paths, but with a deeper understanding of each other and ourselves. And maybe that's what family is really about: embracing the unexpected and choosing love, no matter what.